Let me give some history on my daughter and her life to explain why we're in this position. My daughter was 18 years old when she told me she wanted to marry her boyfriend of a year. My husband and I, both in our 60s currently, did not want to see her get married so young, either of them, and we advised them to wait and keep dating, to live life a little first. His family had the same response. So to show us all they could do it, they went and got married at the courthouse with just some of their friends as witnesses. Once they were married, my husband and I tried to be supportive without getting in the way. They were so young, but also old enough to make decisions for themselves, and we did not want to be those parents who step in and make things worse again. The marriage was doomed from the start, but they had 2 children together. My grandson Indigo, now 12 years old, was first, and he was followed by my granddaughter Sky, now 11 years old. My grandchildren were loved, but their parents were not happy together. Their dad was not a good husband to my daughter, but he was an excellent father, and my daughter was not a good wife to their dad, but she was a good mom. He died a few days before my granddaughter's 5th birthday. My daughter found love quickly afterward and married her current husband even faster than her first. From the time they said I do, my daughter and her husband have spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to make my grandchildren his. They went to court for him to adopt them, but the judge asked to speak with the children and said no after their meeting. They appealed the decision and lost again. They paid thousands of dollars for a therapist to speak in court about the benefit of adopting for the kids. The court assigned their own therapist and denied the request again. The only real break from this was when the courts were only handling emergency hearings and adoption requests were delayed due to the pandemic. But once they could, they were back at it. My husband and I asked why our daughter didn't wait to allow the kids the choice, but she wouldn't hear tell of it. They borrowed money to pay for these therapists and lawyers and court fees. Each time the request to adopt was denied by a judge. Now my daughter is pregnant by her husband, and they do not have the money they once did. It all went on the many failed attempts to adopt my grandchildren. My daughter turned to us, my husband, and myself, about a month ago now, and shared how tight their finances are and asked for our help financially. My husband and I told her we would discuss it, but we're on the same page. We do not feel we should help. We feel like doing so will allow our daughter and her husband to continue this pointless adoption pursuit and is not in the best interest of the family. My daughter was furious when we told her no. She asked how we can turn our backs on family. She has said we are clearly not fit to be parents or grandparents. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. I used to work as a paralegal and eventually a court clerk, and your daughter is wasting money. It truly isn't going to happen. Even if the kids change their minds, the court clerks know who your daughter is. When she files something, the judges are reviewing records from former hearings and seeing that she's wasting time. Her attorneys know an adoption isn't going to happen. I guarantee if your daughter tried to change jurisdictions to get an unbiased judge, there will be phone calls between judicial assistants to make sure that a new judge understands how many times she has tried this. Your daughter basically cursed herself by continuing to pursue this. Judges hate people who waste their time. I'm betting that the kid consultation is only for show. It's likely they make up their minds the instant a new filing hits their desks. Comment 2, not the idiot. You have a right to feel the way you do and deal with the situation how you see best. Not helping does not make you a bad mother. Your daughter needs to get her own priorities straight. Adoption is not the most important thing right now. It's clear that the kids don't want this adoption and she should just leave it. There are plenty of stepfathers who don't adopt, and they are still great fathers to the kids. A legal adoption is only a piece of paper without the relationship and love to go with it, and that is something they need to learn. If you do want to help, there are other things you can do. You can tell your daughter that you will help if they stop trying to get the adoption until the kids decide they want that. You can also tell her that you will not help them, but you will help the kids by getting them things they need. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So a lot has happened in the past month since I last updated you. First off, my daughter and her husband have been struggling more than ever financially. They had to sell their car to cover some of the debts they accumulated from their numerous court battles. This has made it really hard for them to get around, especially with my daughter being pregnant. They've been relying on public transportation and rides from friends, which has been stressful for everyone involved. My husband and I have been helping out by driving the kids to school and activities, but we made it clear that this is the extent of our support. One of the more significant developments is that my daughter's husband lost his job. He was laid off due to budget cuts at his company, and now they're down to a single income. This has put even more strain on their already tight finances. My daughter has been working extra hours to try and make up for the lost income, but it's not enough. They've been cutting back on everything, even groceries, which has been hard on the kids. Indigo and Sky have been feeling the effects of all this turmoil. Indigo, who is usually very quiet and reserved, has started acting out at school. He got into a fight with another student and was suspended for a week. When I asked him about it, he just shrugged and said he was tired of everything. Sky, on the other hand, has become very withdrawn. She used to be so bubbly and full of life, but now she barely speaks and spends most of her time in her room. It breaks my heart to see them like this. In the midst of all this, my daughter's husband has been pushing even harder for the adoption. He's convinced that if he can just get the court to see things his way, everything will be better. He's been spending hours researching legal precedents and trying to find a new lawyer who might be able to help them. My daughter, however, seems to be losing hope. She's exhausted from the constant stress and is starting to question whether this fight is worth it. A few days ago, my daughter came over to our house in tears. She said she didn't know what to do anymore and that she felt like she was failing her family. She admitted that she was scared about the future and didn't know how they were going to make it. My husband and I tried to comfort her, but we also reiterated our stance on not giving them money. We told her that we loved her and the kids, but that we couldn't support their continued pursuit of the adoption. This led to a huge argument. My daughter accused us of not caring about her or the kids and said that we were being selfish. She stormed out of the house and we haven't spoken since. It's been incredibly difficult for us, but we still believe that we're doing the right thing. In the meantime, I've been reflecting a lot on how we got here. My daughter has always been headstrong and determined, even as a child. She's never been one to back down from a challenge, which is something I've always admired about her. But I think this same trait has also led her to make some impulsive decisions, like getting married so young and rushing into this adoption battle. I remember a time when she was about 10 years old and wanted to join the school soccer team. She wasn't very good at soccer, but she practiced every day until she made the team. She was so proud of herself, and I was proud of her too. But I also remember how devastated she was when she didn't get much playing time during games. She felt like all her hard work was for nothing. I think that experience shaped her in a lot of ways. She learned that determination and hard work don't always lead to the results you want. But she also learned to keep pushing forward no matter what. I see that same determination in her now, but I also see the toll it's taking on her and her family. I wish she could see that sometimes it's okay to let go and focus on what's truly important. I've tried to talk to her about this, but she's so wrapped up in her own world that she can't see beyond the immediate challenges. As for my husband and me, we've been trying to find ways to support the kids without enabling my daughter and her husband's behavior. We've been spending more time with Indigo and Sky, trying to give them a sense of stability and normalcy. We've also been talking to them about their feelings and trying to help them process everything that's going on. It's been tough, but we're doing our best. I don't know what the future holds for my daughter and her family, but I do know that we'll continue to be there for the kids. They deserve to have a happy and stable life, and we'll do everything we can to make that happen. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for asking my mom to avoid wearing white at my wedding and causing a meltdown? Some context. I am getting married next June 2025, and I thought it would be nice for immediate family to have a color to wear, just so pictures look coordinated. I've asked my mom and future mother-in-law to wear a sort of terracotta rust red color. I told them they can pick the dress or can have a pattern, be any length. It doesn't even have to exactly match the color swatch I showed them. I don't care, just wanted everything to look cohesive in a red hue. I thought this was pretty straightforward, but my mom keeps sending me tons of dresses she's looking at to ensure they are the right color. Each time I tell her that as long as it's a reddish color, it's totally fine, just to let me know what she ends up picking. She sent me a picture this morning, red dress with white top, and then called me to say this was the dress she was going to go with as long as the color was right. I told her the color was fine, but I would prefer that she didn't wear a dress with white. She seemed to take this well. She only had a couple comments like, "Well, I thought it was pretty, and there aren't very many options." Now, cut to this afternoon, I am talking again with my mom, and she starts talking about the dress color again, saying she's very confused with the color I'm asking her to find. I told her again that I thought any red hue color would be perfectly fine. It wasn't a huge deal. She then told me that she really liked the dress she showed me earlier with the white because it broke up the dress. She said she felt like she needed the white top or else she would look like a menstrual cycle. I was a little taken aback that she was comparing the color to a period. Anyway, I told her that I thought it would be nice if only I was wearing white, and that if she wanted to find a dress with a pattern that was fine, to break it up a little. But I would prefer that she didn't wear white. She came back telling me that it's okay to wear white as long as it's not a lot, like a white shirt with a skirt would be okay. I told her again that I would prefer that she didn't wear white. She is now upset with me and being very passive-aggressive. Am I the jerk for not wanting her to wear white, even if it's just the top of the dress? I feel like there are thousands of red dresses online to choose from. It shouldn't be hard to find one that is red and doesn't make you look like a period stain. I'm feeling upset with her, but maybe the not wearing white to someone's wedding is outdated and I should let it go? Please help. To add, my mother-in-law suggested that we pick a color for them to wear. She's an event planner and said it would make the family photos look very cohesive. Also, I am not worried at all about my mom looking like a bride or upstaging me. I just was thinking about the photos where we're all standing right next to each other. Almost forgot. I see all of the comments saying it's bad taste to request mother of the bride and mother of the groom to wear specific colors. So I texted my mom and future mother-in-law that they can wear whatever color they'd like. My mom says she's going to stay with the red, so she must like it. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I don't think anyone would mistake that for a wedding dress. I think you're overreacting a bit to this specific outfit. Men are going to wear white shirts with their suits. Slight, you're the jerk. I also think a color scheme for family members is overkill, unless they're in the wedding party. Comment 2. You're the jerk. You have taken the bride only wears white to the extreme. The dress in the link does not resemble a wedding dress in any shape or form. Another issue is that red is a very bold color, and some women don't wear it. I take it your mom is one of these people. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me. So after I told my mom she could wear whatever color she wanted, things seemed to calm down for a bit. But then a few days later, she called me again, this time sounding more agitated. She said she had been looking at more dresses and still couldn't find anything she liked that wasn't red and didn't make her feel like a menstrual cycle. I tried to reassure her again, but she kept bringing up the white top dress. I could tell she was still hung up on it, even though I had already explained my feelings about it. Then out of nowhere, she dropped a bombshell. She said she had been talking to my aunt, her sister, about the whole dress situation, and my aunt had suggested that maybe I was being too controlling about the wedding. My mom said she felt like she couldn't make any decisions without my approval, and that it was making her feel like she wasn't important. This really threw me off because I thought I had been pretty flexible about the whole thing. I told her that I just wanted everyone to look nice in the photos and that it wasn't about controlling her choices. But she wasn't having it. The next day, my future mother-in-law called me to say that she had heard from my mom about the dress issue and wanted to make sure everything was okay. She said she didn't want any tension to ruin the wedding planning and offered to help my mom find a dress that she liked. I appreciated the gesture, but I could tell my mom was already feeling ganged up on. She didn't want my future mother-in-law's help and felt like everyone was against her. As the week went on, my mom's passive-aggressive comments turned into more direct confrontations. She started bringing up old grievances, like how she felt left out of other wedding decisions and how she thought I was favoring my future mother-in-law's opinions over hers. It was like everything she had been holding in was coming out all at once. I tried to address each issue as it came up, but it felt like I was just putting out fires left and right. One evening, my fiancé and I were having dinner with his parents, and the topic of the wedding came up. His mom mentioned that she had spoken to my mom and that she seemed really upset. She suggested that maybe we should all sit down together and talk things out. I agreed, thinking it might help clear the air. But when I brought it up to my mom, she flat out refused. She said she didn't want to be ambushed and that she felt like everyone was ganging up on her. At this point, I was feeling pretty overwhelmed. I didn't want this dress issue to cause a rift in my family, but it seemed like no matter what I did, things were just getting worse. My fiance tried to be supportive, but I could tell he was getting frustrated too. He suggested that maybe we should just let my mom wear the dress with the white top if it would make her happy. I considered it, but I still felt strongly about not having white in the family photos. Then a few days later, my mom called me again, this time in tears. She said she had been talking to my dad, and he had suggested that maybe she shouldn't come to the wedding at all if it was causing so much stress. This was a huge shock to me. I couldn't believe my dad would say something like that, and I couldn't believe my mom was even considering it. I told her that I wanted her at the wedding and that we could figure something out, but she just kept saying she didn't want to ruin my day. In the midst of all this, I started to think back on my relationship with my mom. Growing up, she had always been very particular about appearances and how things looked to others. I remembered how she would always make sure we were dressed perfectly for family photos and how she would get upset if things didn't go according to plan. I realized that this dress issue was probably bringing up a lot of those old feelings for her, and that maybe she was feeling like she was losing control. I also thought about my relationship with my future mother-in-law. She had always been very supportive and easygoing, and I had started to rely on her a lot during the wedding planning. I wondered if my mom was feeling threatened by that, and if that was part of why she was so upset. I tried to talk to her about it, but she just kept saying that she felt like she couldn't do anything right. By the end of the week, things had reached a breaking point. My mom called me and said she had decided to go with a different dress, one that was a darker red and didn't have any white. She said she hoped it would make me happy, but I could tell she was still upset. I thanked her and told her I appreciated it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this whole situation had caused a lot of damage to our relationship. So that's where things stand right now. My mom has a dress, but there's still a lot of tension between us. I'm hoping that as the wedding gets closer, things will start to calm down, but I'm not sure. I just want everyone to be happy and for the wedding to go smoothly. But it feels like there's still a lot of unresolved issues. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to live with my aunt after she called me a liar about my family's abuse? So my dad had me, age 17, and my brother, age 15. Our mom died when we were 2 and 4 months old. A year later, he met Mel and they got married. Mel had 2 daughters, age 23 and age 22. I'm not sure if their dad died or if he just wasn't around, but they lived with us 100% of the time. I don't remember a time before Mel and my stepsisters. Mel was so happy with my brother and he became her son and her pride and joy. She never cared about me and never expressed an interest in me. My dad was very similar. He basically forgot about me being his daughter. Mel still showed an interest in her daughters, but they hated the fact she claimed my brother as her son and showed so much obsession about having a boy. I get it because she was all they had before. They hated me. They hated my brother too and wanted nothing to do with him, but he was so good having 2 parents that he never cared about siblings. He calls himself an only child. I'd hoped to be close to my stepsisters, but they bullied me and said I would never be their family. My grandparents noticed that I was left out of a lot, noticed the bullying and rejections. They live out of state, and when they'd come to visit and we'd all go out, I was left behind with them, while my dad and Mel took the other 3 out to amusement parks and stuff. Mel would tell me to my face in front of them that she's not my mom, and yet beam when my brother called her mom. They also noticed that when my brother and stepsisters got treats, I rarely, if ever, did. They brought it up a few times and were basically ignored. I know they had this big talk with Dad about it, and he denied anything was going on. I also know they asked my aunt, who lived close by and saw us a lot, to keep an eye on me. She didn't. 2 years ago, I'd gotten really depressed after being stuck with Dad, Mel, and my brother during Infection 19 and being ignored, that I told my aunt about everything and asked if I could live with her. She got pissed on my dad's behalf, and she called me a liar and told me not to be so jealous, that I wasn't a kid anymore. And no, I couldn't live with her. She was so mad at me that I avoided seeing her for months. I was so afraid she would ridicule me in front of them. For some reason, she realized a couple of weeks ago that I wasn't lying. She came and told me I could live with her now, and she told me it was awful what my dad let happen and that I shouldn't be there anymore. but she would get me out and she'd protect me. I was shocked. It came out of literal nowhere. She didn't apologize for what she said before, though, and so I told her I'd stay, that I didn't think living with her was a better idea anymore. She got mad and asked me why not, and I told her because she can't call me a liar and then expect to swoop in and for me to see her as a hero. She told me I got so hung up on nothing. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. I'm sorry this is happening to you. What about your grandparents or anyone on your mom's side of the family? Even if you haven't had contact with them, try reaching out on Facebook. Also, I really want to know why your aunt suddenly believes you and wants you to come live with her. Maybe I've been on Reddit too long, but something just doesn't smell right with this. Comment 2, not the idiot. Your aunt sure sounds like she gets mad at you a lot. Living with that would hardly be an improvement over living with people who ignore you. I am so sorry this is the hand you've been dealt in life. You deserve better. Get away from all of them as soon as you can and start looking for your people and your real family of choice in life. Much love to you now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So after my aunt's offer, things took a turn I didn't expect. 2 weeks ago, my dad and Mel announced they were going on a 2-week vacation. Just the two of them. They left my stepsisters in charge, which was a nightmare. The first few days were rough. My stepsisters made it clear they were in control and I was to do all the chores. They even took my phone away, saying I didn't need it since I wasn't going anywhere. I felt trapped and more isolated than ever. One night, I overheard my stepsisters talking about a party they were planning. They were inviting a bunch of people over while my dad and Mel were away. I knew it would be a disaster and I didn't want to be around for it. I decided to sneak out and go to my grandparents' house. They lived a few hours away, but I figured I could take a bus and be there by morning. I packed a small bag and waited until everyone was asleep. I quietly left the house and walked to the nearest bus stop. The bus ride was long and gave me a lot of time to think. I felt a mix of fear and relief. Fear of what my stepsisters would do when they found out I was gone, and relief that I was finally taking control of my situation. When I arrived at my grandparents' house, they were surprised but welcomed me with open arms. I told them everything that had happened since my aunt's offer. They were furious and said they would talk to my dad as soon as he got back. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. The next day, my grandparents called my dad. They told him I was with them and that they were not sending me back. My dad was angry and demanded I return home immediately. My grandparents stood their ground and said I would stay with them until he and Mel got back from their vacation. My dad reluctantly agreed, but I could tell he was not happy about it. During my time with my grandparents, I started to feel more like myself again. They took me out to do fun things, and we had long talks about my future. They encouraged me to think about college and what I wanted to do with my life. It was the first time anyone had shown interest in my dreams and aspirations. When my dad and Mel returned from their vacation, they came to my grandparents' house to pick me up. My grandparents had a long talk with them about how I had been treated. My dad tried to downplay everything, but my grandparents wouldn't let him. They told him that if things didn't change, they would take legal action to get custody of me. My dad and Mel agreed to make some changes. They promised to treat me more fairly and to include me in family activities. I was skeptical, but I decided to give them a chance. I returned home with them, but things were different this time. My grandparents had made it clear that they were watching, and my dad and Mel knew they couldn't ignore me anymore. The first few days back home were awkward. My stepsisters were still hostile, but they knew they couldn't push me around like before. My dad and Mel made an effort to include me in conversations and activities. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. One evening, my dad sat me down for a talk. He admitted that he had been wrong to ignore me and that he wanted to make things right. He said he was proud of me for standing up for myself and that he wanted to be a better father. I could see he was sincere, and it gave me hope that things could really change. As the days went by, I started to see small improvements. My dad and Mel made an effort to spend time with me, and my stepsisters backed off a bit. I still felt like an outsider, but at least I wasn't being actively bullied anymore. One day, my dad surprised me by taking me out for a father-daughter day. We went to an amusement park, Just the two of us. It was the first time I had ever done something like that with him. We talked and laughed, and for the first time, I felt like I had a real connection with him. During our day out, my dad opened up about his own struggles. He told me about how hard it was for him after my mom died and how he had thrown himself into his new family to cope. He admitted that he had neglected me and that he was sorry. It was a difficult conversation, but it helped me understand him better. When we got home, my dad made a point to include me in family activities. We started having regular family dinners where everyone was expected to be present. My stepsisters were still distant, but they were no longer openly hostile. My brother, on the other hand, remained indifferent. He was still wrapped up in his own world, but I didn't mind as much anymore. My grandparents continued to check in on me regularly. They made it clear to my dad and Mel that they were watching and that they wouldn't hesitate to step in if things went back to the way they were. Knowing I had their support gave me the strength to keep pushing for better treatment. Looking back, I realized that standing up for myself was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was worth it. My relationship with my dad is still a work in progress, but it's getting better. I still have a long way to go with my stepsisters, but at least I'm no longer being bullied. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.